Welcome to the 4 Bars Podcast. I'm Ken Leith.
And I'm Patty Leith. We are your hosts for some compelling dialogue, encouraging our listeners to strengthen their connections
And build strong communities, lifting each other up and connecting in ways that matter.
We named the podcast 4 Bars as a reference to how hard we work to find a 4 Bars connection on our devices.
And we wondered what could happen with relationships if we worked as hard at connecting.
Let's find out. Welcome back to 4 Bars, the podcast. We're excited to be here. I have my co-host with me, Ken Leith, and we are excited to host a guest who will be speaking to us today about AI, Vic Miles. Vic is the general manager for industry strategies in America. So welcome, Vic. It's great to see you.
Thank you for having me, Patty.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you to this point?
Yeah, so I've been 15 years with Microsoft. As you said, I'm the general manager of our industry business in the Americas. We look after our most strategic customers in the Americas, North and South, and we help them sort of unpack how to use technology to meet their business needs. So we sit at the intersection between, the business imperatives and the right technology solution. I have a team of folks, about 20 people or so, who engage in market. And we at Microsoft like to hire out of the industry, right? So my background, I came from industry. I think of myself as a retailer. I've worked for Walmart stores for 10 years and did many things in that business. I was on the IT side. So I started out as a software developer and engineer. Worked on the operations side of the business, so point of sale, cash registers, time clocks, and payroll, and all that stuff in the store. So I really have a heart for what we call them as frontline associates who work in the store, and have just built a career around this intersection between the needs of consumers. And I find that I'm really tuned into what we call the market. Right? What do consumers want, and how do retailers and service providers, right, whether they're healthcare or anything, how do we serve that need with the right balance of profit and all of the rest? So it's a great position. I've enjoyed it now as I mentioned for 15 years, and so now it feels like a constant evolution, right? We probably no 2 years have been the same, right? Or certainly no more than 2 years have been the same. And it's just constant change. And so, again, excited to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. Great to have you. Thanks for sharing that. As you think about your background and your how you've put together your experiences, what did you learn early that you really helps drive you today?
I learned that, and you and I met years ago.
Yes, we did.
And we all have these sort of moments of growth, these spurts of growth in our career. And you and I were meeting, and I think you helped me grow into a more leadership position, right, from management. What I learned early on was you have to get on the ground, right? And so growing up in the culture of Sam Walton, it was about you really couldn't have a good understanding of the business unless you were in the field.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you got to go to the field. So, in my tenure, I used to run a cash register on Saturday because my team and I developed the solution that 300,000 cashiers would use every day. And just to gain empathy, right? I used to go on the Saturday. It wasn't my idea, to be fair, in the beginning. And run a register, and you haven't lived until you can't identify a produce item, right? And a mother with 3 children is there, and you're trying to get through, and you start to have empathy for. So I would tell you, I learned empathy for how the systems that we develop, how they impact the end user.
Yes.
And so I bring that forward into my current career, and so a lot of times we'll say, "Show me." Show. I'm from Missouri as well, so it's the show me state. We'll say, "Show me this thing that you're talking about. Can we see it? Can we do a plant tour? Can we get on the floor of a store?" That kind of thing.
There is no replacement for that kind of experience, and similar to you, I started with Food Lion. And learned the business from the ground up, and just spent time on the floor before going into management. That was a requirement for them. And I still draw back on that experience on a regular basis. So, yeah.
I agree.
Well, I discovered your passion for this topic as we reconnected, but also in your own podcast.
Yes,
Can you tell us
yes.
a little bit about your podcast?
So, Conversations on Retail. It's a YouTube based podcast. A gentleman by the name of Matt Pfeiffer had runs sort of the program,
Yes.
and he has hosts there. And so I do a show called Beyond the Tech, and so I'm very interested in. So the tech side, I live and breathe that daily. But I also get in my role an opportunity to meet fascinating people, right? Who are doing things that technologically make the press, but then they themselves are fascinating.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, you do marathon running.
Yes.
Or you like to hike, or you're a world class. What is it? In the Olympics, where the curling.
Yes.
Class
Oh,
curling.
wow,
How did you
cool.
know that kind of thing? And so I invite guests onto the show to talk about their background and how, again, that intersection with technologies.
So what makes them a whole person
Exactly.
outside of this
Exactly.
tech? Love it. We've watched a few episodes, and I highly recommend listeners that you check it out. We're here to talk about AI.
Of course.
So I'm interested in learning about the journey that Microsoft has been on with AI.
Yes, and it's interesting. I didn't sort of start out, even in my own podcast, to being an AI sort of evangelist or an educator, but it is the topic du jour. Everybody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so I've had my own journey in understanding it, and we're on the cusp of yet another shift in AI. And so hopefully we'll unpack that today as we talk. But artificial intelligence, really, I like to start with a primer by saying it's not new.
Yes.
Right? So artificial intelligence has been around really since the late 50s, right? And it didn't look the same. It was just, it started as machine learning, trying to find patterns. Now, what you do with the pattern, back to you, human, right? That kind of thing. And now we're entering into this space where companies are very excited about bringing expertise to their employees and the folks that work in the business, being able to take a 4-year associate and give them the same expertise as your 16-year associate, right? So that they can both have the same level of whether it's service or performance in the business, and that's super compelling. There's dollars involved as well. Depending on which source you plug into, whether it's Goldman Sachs or McKinsey or IDC, it's between $2 and $19 trillion of GDP impact.
Wow.
$19 trillion. And it's a pretty wide range.
Yeah.
Let's see, I think IDC has it at 14 and McKinsey had it at 2 to 4 trillion. And so that is what's driving companies to say, I want in. And there's cautious optimism, right, as we think about the impact to jobs, right? So I always say, I don't want to live in a community, and neither do you or the audience either, that has 40% unemployment. That's not what we're here for, right? So, when the machines can do everything better. And so it's about finding, as the audience and yourselves think about AI, it's about finding where are the friction points? What are the things that irritate you about engaging with brands, in my space, the retail and consumer goods, that irritate you about engaging with brands, or that keep you from having the best experience? And can we use AI to smooth that out?
Right.
We don't want to. I'm trying to replace a bunch of people, but if there are some areas, some seams that we can sew up.
Yes. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, it's a topic everywhere. We do not go into a client's facility over the last several years, and that's not coming up in a discussion. And everyone's strategic roadmap has an AI component to it now, whereas 3 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Exactly.
It's kind of just being talked about on a peripheral. But if you think about it now, where companies are starting to embrace it and where they're still hesitant, where do you see those junctures as far as where's that embracing and where is their hesitancy still?
There's, again, being in the retail space, when you're working with a business with single-digit margins, right, the hesitancy comes from there's a lot of cost here, right? So we talk about AI being a reasoning engine on the back end, and then a large amount of data that it reasons over, and then an interface, right? And so we know that interface largely today as a conversational interface. For Microsoft, we branded it Copilot, right? So it's a co-pilot. you're the pilot, and this is here to help you. The hesitancy is with cost, because that reasoning engine really does consume resources, compute resources, and it costs money. And so we see people say, hold on, where's the value? And so now we're seeing people shift into, I like the idea of it, what's the ROI? Right?
Absolutely.
The uptake that we've seen is in generally content creation. So companies who perhaps who sell cars, vehicles, especially used vehicles, where each one is different. Right. And you have to create copy material that says, here is a Ford truck that's blue. It's got one dent on the side. It's got 60,000 miles or whatever. That can take days to create. Right. You have to go see the vehicle, that sort of thing. What all is relevant to the consumer, and having AI understand the relevancy of the consumer. So AI is able to take, who is your target audience, right? By locale. So my target audience is San Diego, California, and the 150-mile radius. Okay, I now know something about this demographic, and then so on, right? Am I going for the professional person to use it as work? And it will then create copy that is relevant to that audience, right? In seconds. Right? And so we're seeing large uptake there. Call centers, being at that front end, and we've experienced IVRs, right, where they're sort of trying to route you through, but having a conversation in a call center that says, why are you calling? Oh, have you tried this? Meanwhile, you're in the queue, but I'm going to converse with you, that sort of thing. So we've seen uptake on the content side, but hesitancy on the cost side.
Yeah, understand.
Absolutely.
For many people, they're afraid of it. They're afraid of what it will do to the future. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, and it's, if I can do some small measure of assuaging people's concerns around AI, I think that in the U.S., about 75% of our GDP is in the service industry, right? That's healthcare, retail, hospitality, that sort of thing. And so those hands-on businesses, I don't see a lot changing, right? So again, AI that knows you in the hotel room and presents a particular menu on the TV based on your preferences. You still need, housekeeping. You still need front desk. You still need all of the folks that create the rest of the experience. And so a lot of folks won't. I would think for folks like myself and the people that you work with, the professionals on the back end, right, that says, hey, am I really adding value? Or am I just part of the value chain? I'm in the process.
Yes.
Right. I don't know that I have the same message for them. Right. And I think the answer is get to value. Right. Get to where you're creating value. You're adding value. Because if you're working a let's call it an inbound queue of invoices that need to be cleared. Right. Right. And your goal is clear the invoices every day. Right. And with some threshold of at least 100 plus empty, within 10 by the time you leave, kind of thing. AI will do a lot of that better than people. The good news is, though, is it frees you up. So start to understand, why am I clearing invoices? Right. What is the value that this process has? And then I can go add value somewhere else in the value chain. But if I only know the rote process of clearing invoices, that's going to change.
Yeah. One of the fundamentals we work with executives on building their strategic capacity is to let someone or something else help you do that work, because then it frees you up to really do the things that your intellect and your training and background can benefit the organization.
I talked about
gets into that, I think.
I talked about the tenured associate, the 16-year associate, and the 4-year associate, right? I think one of our findings, we looked at some studies, we found that the 16-year associate has aspiration to do more, but they are the glue that holds this process together.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It takes that level of tenure to keep this process moving.
Very
right?
interesting.
And so if we can remove that, you're now free to go explore your own passions, right? I didn't really intend to be here clearing invoices for 16 years, right? And so, but I understand it front and back. There's nothing I haven't seen. I am critical to the business. But my real passion is I want to lead X department, right? And so now this frees you up to go do that. So we do see school teachers, right? Do they really want to grade all the papers at night? We think not. right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Right.
being able to sort of reduce that, I think that the quality of life will raise. There's a lot of folks that say, the most famous person that says, Bill Gates, the
Yes.
Microsoft founder, says that, people, work will look very different in the future. And for many people, they won't have to work. I don't know what that looks like yet.
Yes.
But that's the future that we're going to, is there'll be enough value created that 19 trillion, right? As long as we don't sort of, in a social construct, let that consolidate at the top, I think all of our lives get better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's exciting and scary at the same time when it comes out. But as you were talking there, one of the things that hit me, it's part of it really can be about it's delegating those tasks that really are not tasks that are relational.
Yes.
So it's taking those things that just need to get done at someone's desk and primarily alone potentially where they do those things. AI today, as we see it, and what you're defining is more of, I can take that off your plate, delegate it over here. You go do something more relational,
Yes.
something that has higher value to the organization, correct?
Indeed, yes, exactly. And maybe now's a good time to sort of talk about the fork that is occurring in AI in the
Yes.
market right now. We're about 2 years in, let's say, to the big bang of AI. We began with conversational AI.
Yes.
Right, so chatbots.
Yes.
Right, very, very intelligent chatbots. I don't know if you've used it.
I have. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
When you no longer have to search, right? So I wanted to search, what is the procedure for getting a new driver's license in Arkansas, right? And so I could go to the Department of Finance Administration, the DFA side, and then Elite Read and get the PDF and that, but an AI agent told me, oh, you need these 4 documents. You have to come here. Most offices close by 4. Told me exactly what I wanted to know in seconds. So that's the conversational AI.
Okay.
And Ken, what you talked about is this what I like to call units of work, right? These tasks.
Yes.
We're moving into this notion of agent-based AI, and they call it agentic.
Yes.
So it's agentic AI is agent-based AI, and agents will autonomously, so without prompting, do units of work. And so when you think about the interconnection between departments in a business, right? So I'll go back to my invoice thing. So the invoices come in, they first get, before they go to finance to be paid, they have to be clear, were all the numbers right? Was the inventory actually moved? That kind of thing. And that inventory movement comes from a different department, right?
Yes.
And then we move it over into finance and they pay it. And that's how we used to do processes, right? And build corporations. And now we're saying, well, that the data of the inbound invoice and what was received is available to the agent.
Yeah.
The data about what was ordered is available to the agent, and the data about the compliance aspects of paying and finance is available to the agent. So bringing those 3 together, the agent can just do the process without prompting or intervention. So we're moving from human in the loop, right? A human in the loop,
Yes.
to no human in the loop. And so again, but if you're thinking about friction, if your job is clearing the friction, meaning I work on invoices all day, your job's going to change.
Yes.
So, but there are those 2 things, and I would invite the audience to really think about in their own businesses, right? What are those units of work? And you called them tasks, but it's actually even bigger because we had 3 tasks there,
Yes.
right? And it's really a unit of work. We're trying to just pay the invoice. And so, yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And as we talked before, the conversational AI, you found there were some challenges in how that, how that answers you. And I agree. You can almost get more out of that than you can out of any other type of searching these days. But there are some limitations that you all have found, which has prompted your journey into agentic. Can you speak to that?
Yes, exactly. So the first limitation, and Ken mentioned it, is the hesitancy around the cost.
Yes.
Right. So executives, boards are saying, what does it mean to make my employee 20% more productive?
Yeah.
Right. Is that a longer break, or do we get 20% more work done? Right. Are we changing the business process so that queue of invoices is there going to be 20% more? Do I get rid of people? They want to know, where is the savings? I see the cost side.
Yes.
And so the ROI has been one of the challenges with that is yes, we understand people can seek information and find information. There is this notion of prompting. There's a new sort of engineering role in the tech space called a prompt engineer. So before we used to we learned how to talk to the computers, what I call machine speak. Right. So as a developer, they're talking to a computer all day, right, through a language. And now this prompt engineer says, knowing the data, I want to actually be able to ask the question in a well-formed way that gives me the answer I want. So you ask, what were the challenges we found? Depending on how you ask the question, the machine may take a different context.
Yes.
Right, and give you a different answer. Right, and so therein lies the challenge. Hold on, we don't want to just unleash this powerful tool, and someone says, should I order more? And the machine says, well, absolutely, sure, order up.
Right. Yeah.
Never mind that there's only 2 weeks left in the season, and the cost changed, and we don't have, and the supply chain isn't there, and so that's been the hesitancy. Is, hold on, we don't know how to create prompts, broadly speaking.
Right.
How to create prompts, and is the model, we call it the model answers, the language model, does it have the proper context? And so that's a big challenge. We're still working on that.
Yeah.
So agentic is sort of the new wave that says, given a process that happens every day and has to happen every day, we can do that without thinking.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah, I think the other thing about that, so we're really talking about shifting and almost becoming bilingual with that. With the technology and then the natural language that people utilize.
Yes.
Balances that. We think about that, even knowing language, and then there's syntax. There's the ability to understand behaviorally. How should I answer a question? Do you see that evolving to another level potentially with agents to be able to kind of pick up on some other nuances in languages?
Yes, I do see it evolving, and it's already there to some degree. It's about harnessing it.
Okay.
Right? So not knowing that by asking a question a certain way, you've implied a bias, not in a bad way, but maybe your bias is, I only have 20 minutes. What should I cook for dinner? Right?
Yes.
Versus, I'm trying to impress my boss and 15 guests. What should I cook for dinner?
Yes.
Right? And so I think behaviorally, and when we tune, when the engineers, when they tune the AI, that you can actually have it be more professional.
Yeah.
Right. And we've even given the users the ability to say, do you want the response in a more professional tone, more playful? Do you want me to sort of dream big? Right. Do you want the wide open?
Right.
Here's the possibilities. And so right now it's still a parameter based sentiment. And so we're not there yet to say, when Patty asks a question, I can tell by the inflection in her voice, like you can, perhaps, working with her closely.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? What's the context of the question? Who moved this here? Right? It's different than, how did this get here? Right?
Very true.
And one of the things I've noticed too is occasionally it'll miss something key. Right. So there is still the need to bring it back in and read through and look at it, but occasionally it'll miss something that really is pretty key to the solution or whatever it is you're trying to create.
Yes. There is also a notion of doing your own research, right? Saying don't rely on this as the definitive source, right? And I think that gives people pause as well. Well, hold on, what do you mean? So we're back to the person needing to know the right answer, right? No, I ask you for the answer.
Yeah.
There's it's called hallucination.
Yes.
When the machine sort of fills in the ranks, your brain does it, right? And that's what's sort of exciting and a bit scary, if you will, about AI is it's sort of acting like our brain.
Like our brains.
Right?
Yes.
You read a word that doesn't have a letter and you fill in the letter.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? Just naturally you fill it in. And so it's filling in things, and we're not exactly sure how it does that, or what context it's using to do that. And so there is a bit of of caution involved in.
So we are printing our Christmas cards, and the printer contacted me about a word that I had left a letter out of. And we probably both edited that thing 10 times.
Yes.
And it's funny because it said, the last bullet point in it was, we started a podcast, and I left out the T. So it's like, we stared a podcast. And I'm like, oh, we're staring at that podcast. So just, yeah.
Yeah, so exactly.
But she caught it, so it didn't go to print, and I was very thankful. And yeah, so.
And it takes a human to do that. Right?
It takes
stare
a
at a
human to do
word,
that.
not misspelled.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
And
So funny.
and we try to actually have everything within our organization that goes out to a customer, in this case, or people we know, edited. So, and you don't do your own editing because of that same issue. So somewhere along the lines is, how does that cross-check come in for the future of agents? And is there a secondary agent that is almost the editor and checking for that stuff? That's not their role.
If that's part of your work process and you're tapping into a key sort of aspect of agents, agents. So I mentioned that AI is a set of data, right? The information, a reasoning engine that reasons over that data, and then an interface, right? And then I said that the agent doesn't need a human, right? But it still has an interface. And you're exactly right. Agents can talk to each other, right? I don't know, for folks who in the tech space, we had a big tech show back in November called Ignite. And while one of our engineering leaders was on stage doing a demo, the demo ran long. It was supposed to just come back in about 10 seconds or something. So he's talking, and he says, "Hold on, it's not supposed to run this long." And the demo was of an agent building a program, like doing a programming language. The agent was doing what a person would do, building a program and sending it to a validation agent to validate. And they were having a conversation about what was right. And and that's what was running so long, as they were still discussing.
That's fascinating.
And when I say discussing, they can actually use natural language to discuss.
Oh, that's
They don't have to use machine learning. They don't have to use ones and zeros to discuss. They can say, that's not quite right. They say, well, my specification said it should be this way, and that's why I did it that way. Well, realistically, I don't have that information until later in the process. Well, and so he ended up stopping the demo. Yeah, so yes, they can talk to each other. So
they collaborate.
They can collaborate.
That's amazing.
Well,
that's amazing.
What's really interesting about that is we see that play out every single day with our clients in their business worlds, is that back and forth, that in this case can slow down the overall goal of achieving the overall goal.
Yes.
So some of the same things will have to be addressed and overcome to be able to have it to be as efficient as possible moving forward.
I agree. I think one of the use cases I think about is, as you mentioned, between two companies who are trying to get work done, right? But they have different taxonomy and language,
Yes.
right? We call it an order number, you call it a customer number or something like that, right? And so I have to translate, and I say our order number is this. Oh, let me find our equivalent of customer number. And so it's not really high value interaction,
Yes.
right? We're still trying to communicate. Now, we've been doing business for 15 years together, but we still every day have to remember our own language. Having AI do that portion, the translation, and leaving the people to say, how is the business going? What's the sell-through? How can we improve this? And now doing the higher order, more value add capabilities, I think is the real promise of AI.
Yeah, very
Absolutely. And those things, again, we see that vernacular to a point. We probably 3 times within the last week and a half have had conversations with companies where same words have different meanings within the same organization. You're in Department A and Patty's in Department B, I'm in Department C. And we'll be collaborating, using the same terminology, but walk away with different ideation of what it is I am to go do based upon the fact that my definition is different than both of yours.
Yeah.
Yes. And getting that correct, I think, has been a challenge for the tech industry, for developers for years.
Yes.
Right. And just like translation tables.
Yes.
That we keep, and you have to keep them current and that sort of thing. And so I'll tell you that that's good news for those of us who work for a living is they still need us.
Yes.
Indeed.
Which is the message I think everyone wants to hear.
Yes, AI will help. It will be an aid. I would say embrace it. There is some level of, and you mentioned it, Patty, sort of resistance to change, and that's why, for that reason, we say that for every good AI implementation, you need an equal change management
Implementation. Very.
You need to have someone who says, okay, so how do we get the workers, right, the people who are going to have the bottom 30% of their role done for them, how do we get them to understand that and to adopt it?
Right.
And where's their new muscle they're going to build? And so bringing that in, and that's a whole nother discipline inside the business.
Yeah.
Because just like you in the coaching space and the readiness and performance space, you come at it differently.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely. One thing I do want to ask about too is you mentioned development is going on at the enterprise level. It is large corporations who live in that space and/or startups that are coming in. At some point in time, typically things filter down to impact mid and small-sized businesses, which are the backbone of the workforce. Does AI and the new phase of AI with agents come down to that point and really start to impact them in a way that helps to accelerate them?
I think it does, right? So, and you point out a good point that our enterprise, my enterprise customers who build their own, right? They're out there. We see press releases every day, and they're building their own and pushing the envelope. The smaller companies are saying, well, they're just not able to do that and don't really have a need to do that. You'll start to see AI creep into the products that they buy. So things like QuickBooks.
Yes.
Right. So the QuickBooks will take away. So they'll say, "Oh no, that you can press here and have the AI agent evaluate and tell you where your problems are." If you file taxes if you do your own taxes, they have the little checker at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. So I think finance software, CRM software, order management software, it will start to get built in, and so they will know it as just a faster, easier, more seamless workflow for themselves. And so there's a breakneck speed right now in terms of the companies who build those solutions wanting to push it down, right? That 19 trillion is going to come from somewhere. And so there might be a higher cost because we're going to reason over your 7 years of financial data so that now we know your business.
Yes.
We know it as well as your finance person who happens to be out sick today. I got this. Right?
Yeah. Good. Well, we are excited to be thinking about a second podcast with you where we're going to really dig deeper into this topic and change management associated with it. But as we seek to wrap up today, I just have one last question for you. This is a lot of change. How can people keep up with it rather than resist it? What are some tips you have?
I think use it in your daily life. It's enterprises saw that their employees, once everybody got an iPhone, right? They didn't like the green screens and the F12 and all of the crazy keystrokes you had to do to get stuff done. They're like, no, I want it just like here.
I want it right there.
Just like right here.
Yeah.
And so we're now seeing that consumers are sort of demanding a different interaction. They don't mind the chatbots on the front side of the phone call now, right? If they're intelligent and they can converse. So I would say use it. If you're thinking about a Christmas gift, ask AI. Describe the recipient. If you're writing that email that needs to be impactful, ask AI. What's a better way to do this?
Yeah.
Right. And then start to just get familiar with it and say, oh, it's actually helping me. I don't have to sort of resist it. So
I've put things in and asked for it to make it more succinct or more professional or more playful. And it really does a great job there.
it's a learning. You can actually learn by by doing.
You really
that.
can.
Yes.
You really can. Yeah.
All I have to say really quickly is I wish we would have had this conversation earlier, because that idea of putting in information about the Christmas present was so helpful.
Would have been helpful before the holidays.
Yes, indeed.
Vic, thanks so much for being here. We look forward to our next conversation with you, and that'll be in 2 weeks. Listeners, thanks for joining. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The 4 Bars podcast has been brought to you by Edges Inc., a growth advisory firm based in Bentonville, Arkansas. I founded the company in 2001.
Edges promotes growth of people, companies, and ideas. Our team collaboration tool, called Interface Methods, is a basis for teams to work together more collaboratively, understand each other, and accept differences and address challenges together.
We also started a nonprofit called Unform Your Bias. We teach kids and their adult influencers how to utilize storytelling as a means to reduce bias in the world. We hope you'll check us out, subscribe to our podcast, and look at our websites.